And hello, everybody. Welcome into this, emergency podcast of the Fieldhouse Files. I'm Scott Agness. What a Sunday here it became. And as a sports reporter, you never know what your day looks like. You never know what might pop up and how things might impact what I'm doing, right? And so there I am Sunday morning with a Spectrum gentleman in my house working on my internet, in fact, when all of a sudden I get the note. Christie Sides fired as Fever head coach after 2 seasons, and now we look forward to what's next as we advance it. It's clearly a fresh start for the franchise because you have a new team president, Kelly Krauskopf, back, the original architect of this Indiana Fever franchise. She drafted Tamika Catchings, made that call despite Ketch being injured at Tennessee and needing ACL surgery. It was Krauskopf who brought in and surrounded Ketch with so much talent, from Breon January to Tammy Sutton-Brown to Ebony Hoffman, Shavonte Zealous, so many different names. Toli Bevilacqua, all of them come to mind as well. And so now she'll be tasked with doing the exact same thing after she wrapped up 6 years as assistant general manager of the Indiana Fever, or Pacers rather. So now she's back running the Fever. She hired Amber Cox, who begins with much fanfare coming up on Monday. Tomorrow is when Amber Cox begins as general manager, and she'll help share in those responsibilities. But as team president, everything falls in line with what Kelly wants. And so she's running this franchise. It was Mel Raines, the new CEO of Pacers Sports and Entertainment, who got started in that role back in mid-June after Rick Fuson stepped away, retired after 40 years at the helm of the franchise. So now it's an all-women-led group, which is awesome. It's Mel Raines, it's Kelly Krauskopf, it's Amber Cox, and to be determined, as the head coaching position is now open with the Fever. And I know it clearly disappointed Christie Sides after what she was able to do in the last couple of years, going from 5 wins to 13 wins to 20 wins. But everything changed, in her words, when the atomic bomb happened with this franchise. And of course, that was the addition of Caitlin Clark back in mid-April. And when you're able to land a piece like her, everything changes. And so what I would say with Christie is the job changed before year 2, the moment they were able to draft Christie Sides. The job that Rick Fuson hired her to over about 2 years ago in November is not the job now that it is. And so that's the reason the Fever are moving on here. I think it's important for them to go with a more veteran, experienced head coach. That's not her fault by any means. You got to be given an opportunity to gain experience in order to be that veteran type coach. But I think the Fever realize right now that they have something special. They are on the precipice of making a special run, and they were given a gift, the number 1 pick for the second year in a row, going from Aaliyah Boston to Caitlin Clark, who has not only changed the Fever, record attendance, over 17,000 just at home games, plus all those on road games. The fact that you had 4 different franchises changing where their home games were because Caitlin in the Fever came to town, right? Atlanta, LA, what else? Vegas and the Washington Mystics as well. Everything changed with Caitlinomics here. And because of this, the Pacers had record jersey sales, over 1,200% up over the last year. Everything is way up. TV ratings, the fact that you have a local TV deal for the first time. I think they should get local radio as well, by the way. That's just a random thought. Record numbers in terms of views on social media, on YouTube, on everything. And so because of that, again, I go back to this special window that the Fever had. Treat it much like the Pacers. If they got LeBron James, you completely tear up what you have designed to be the 4-year rebuild plan that Christie Sides presented to CEO Rick Fuson a couple of years ago. You tear that up and you create a new one. I want to get to some of these comments here before I continue on with what I have to say. If you miss this, it'll remain live here on YouTube, and I will also be posting it on my Fieldhouse Files podcast as well. So check it out. I invite all of you to leave your thoughts here in the comments. I'll try to get to some of them as best I can. A lot of individuals here surprised perhaps, but what happened? Max says we all saw Christie was overhead. I hope she lands somewhere where she can do that team building. Fever need a already seasoned coach. Yeah, I agree, Max. Absolutely. This is a lot. And this is not for any coach. You have to be able to handle the media responsibilities. You have to be able to handle the spotlight. You have to be able to manage the egos. You have to be able to manage Caitlin and the rest of the team and realize you can't treat them all equal. I think the best coaches will say, I don't treat all the players equal, but I treat them fairly. And I'd be very curious to know what was said from some of the players in exit interviews. Certain players never got in. It felt like they didn't get the chance that they wanted to show that they could do something. I think we saw a lot of different lineup changes as the season progressed, right? We saw Christy Wallace start the season and then finish the season on the bench. We saw Lexi Hall finish the season out of the rotation or kind of on the reserves, and then we saw her finish the season. I think the most important thing here, as Max alluded to, is, you need that experienced head coach. You need a coach that has been in these certain circumstances, that knows the media game, that knows how to handle a locker room, that just has that experience. It's not a knock on Chrissy. It's just she hasn't had all of that. And so, yes, Stephanie White has to be the favorite here. She's been here before. She's beloved in the state. She's beloved in the city. She's been a player on the Fever. She's been an assistant coach. She's been a head coach for the Fever. Full disclosure, I was a ball boy for the team. Got to know her well during that time, and I was part of that 2012 championship run together. I'd love to see her here. No, I have not heard back from her today. I sent her a text message to say, hey, anything you can elaborate, share about what's going on. And more than anything, I wanted to check in on her. I don't know how many of you have followed, but something serious has happened with her family over the last couple of weeks. She alluded to it in her exit interview with reporters in Connecticut a couple weeks ago. Her partner, Lisa Salters, did not participate as the sideline reporter from the marquee Monday Night Football game 2 weeks in a row. So beyond basketball, I don't really care about that as much for her right now. I just hope whatever that is taken care of and is on the upswing, and they're good. Because clearly she was hurting a couple weeks ago. That much was very evident from the Zoom call that she had with reporters. But yes, absolutely, Stephanie White, in my opinion, has to be that first call that you make. What's crazy right now is that there were 12 teams in the WNBA last year. 6 teams, now including the Fever, have an opening. The others are big markets. You talk about everything from LA to Atlanta to DC to Chicago. And so that also enters the equation here. But this Fever job is different. This Fever job is not for everyone, but this Fever job is absolutely the most appealing, I think, for most coaches. Not all coaches. Not all coaches can tolerate this. Not all coaches want this. But those that want pressure, those that want to be the featured game every single night. Like, think last year, 36 of the 40 games were scheduled to be on national TV, and it turned out that 38 of the 40, and almost every single one of them drew 1 million followers. I think the only ones that, or viewers, I should say. I think the only ones that did it because less households, and that's NBA TV. And I think those that did set a record still for the most watched WNBA game of all time. Let me get through more of these comments. Chris Callahan said Stephanie White coming back, question mark. A lot of smoke today. I kind of answered that a little bit earlier. I'd love to see that. Nothing's done by any means. She still has 1 more year under her contract, as well as a buyout, obviously. And I'm very curious what Connecticut also wants, where they head, right? Because it seems like maybe they're in the midst of a turnover, a rebuild, just depending on what certain players with like Bonner and Alyssa Thomas and others tend to do. I will mention some of the other individuals I mentioned in my piece today. I'd love to see Breon January, Tyler Marsh. I think they should be considered for this job, although I don't think that's the direction I'd go. And purely from the example I mentioned earlier, you need experience. Those two, I think, would be very good as a head coach, but I want someone to come to this job with experience who's done it for 5, 10 plus years. No doubt about that. And I do wonder, and I mentioned this as well, what have we seen in the men's college game here recently? Jay Wright, Tony Bennett. We've seen 2 marquee Hall of Fame college coaches say, this new landscape, this new NIL, it's not for me. I want to get out of it. What if there's a current college coach that sees that as well and is feeling that way, and they don't want to play the professional game, and instead they rather just go coach in the WNBA? Maybe that happens here as well. I've got to believe that Kelly Krauskopf has a very good idea of who she wants and who they are after, though, right now, just because I know what kind of person and executive she is, and well-organized. She's all about culture. That means a lot. Team building, very good at team building, and reading her players and understanding what they need. I asked her during her exit interview, did she choose to sit in on the exit interview? She said, no, this wasn't my team. I wanted to allow for the staff to finish out the season with this group. And then I would be talking to those players as things went on. I'm certain that's Caitlin, that's Kelsey, that's Aaliyah, and that's many other players as well, if not the whole team. Plus, she's got to reacclimate herself with the agents in the WNBA, right? Very different than the NBA. Some of them share agencies, right? So Caitlin Clark's with XL Sports Management. That's one of the monster ones, just like CAA. And XL is the one I joke how Caitlin very much reminds me of Peyton Manning. Well, Peyton was also is represented by XL Sports Management. So, yeah, those are certain things to figure out. Let me get through some more of these comments. I was wondering if there was going to be a conflict from sides and management over what players to protect. Yeah, that could be. That's not why you make a decision like this. There's certain players, obviously, where maybe a player likes them more than management and vice versa. And I think that's healthy. That's something you talk out, different priorities, right? Because you can only protect 6 of your 12 players. And at least right now, the WNBA says they will not be making those public, and I think that's wrong. I think that they should absolutely make those 6 players public, so everybody knows who is protected and whatnot. And the Golden State Valkyries, by the way, will also not be able to pick more than one player from each team. Rock Simpson, this is 1 in 100-year opportunity. Caitlin is one of a kind. Absolutely, that's what this is about here. It's what the job that Christie was hired into less than 2 years ago is not the job it is today. That's why she's gone. It's not, in my opinion, because of the job she did or how she handled certain circumstances or her growth on the court. They saw steady growth. They saw some learning situations. They saw them go through the slog of the start of the season and be able to learn from that. And I think we also saw so many of them reap the benefit of the Olympic break when they were together for more than 3+ weeks, and how beneficial that was to Christie, to the coaching staff, and especially to the players. Mike says, honestly, I'm not impressed with Stephanie in terms of offense. We want high-paced offense, half-court screen and roll offense. For one, Stephanie's a brilliant player, coach, just mind of the game, right? There's a reason ESPN and Big Ten Network employ her to talk high level game of women's game, the men's game, and in the NBA as well. She's set to call, I think, 12+ NBA games on ESPN. She knows the game, and I think she's also smart enough, as are any probably of the coaches they would consider, to know that you're going to have to adapt a little bit. You need to, the best coaches I've talked with always talk about how while they have goals and ideals and a general philosophy, you can't stick to what the coach just wants. The best coaches know you adapt your system to the team you have, not you try to force the team to adapt to your playing style. That's not going to work. It's just not. So, I think she had a very different team, a much older team, experienced team in Connecticut. That'd be very different than what it is in Indiana. But I know Kelly's prioritizing Kelsey Mitchell for one in the offseason, which they can core her much like a franchise tag in the NBA. And then secondly, you got to add experience. You got to add veterans. And also I would say you got to add shooters. Much like LeBron, you want to have shooters so she can spray it out. And when 2 and 3 defenders collapse on Caitlin, or even a couple defenders collapse on Aaliyah in the middle or whatever, you can benefit from that. I think this team needs more shooting as well. It's how fast you can score. Show us a lot of points. 100 points should do it. Hey, Ken Swift, I appreciate the donation, the I don't know, thank you or whatever here. So I appreciate that. Thanks for your support more than anything. Yeah, prayers. Appreciate that, Jenny. Yeah, prayers to the Steph's family. Again, don't know what's going on, but hopefully things have improved in the last couple of weeks since we first learned about it. Max adds, wonders here, do I feel that the Fever are getting Coach White? I do not know that just yet. So I don't want to speculate on any of that. I've haven't heard that from either side. And so I think that's the obvious choice. I think that's the right choice. But it's a decision that Kelly Krauskopf has to make as team president. And you got to be willing to pay a buyout, which I don't think is very difficult for this franchise to do now that they got to be making all kinds of money just based off 16 of 20 games selling out, merchandise, local TV, all those different things. This team should go get the coach that they want. And I'm sure it'll take a significant contract because, look, there's a lot of bidders out there. The Fever are not the only ones here that are, wanting Stephanie White or any of the top coaches out there. Curt Miller's an intriguing coach. We talked about the offense that Caitlin and this team wants to run. I think Curt Miller would be a great fit for that, but there's a lot of factors you have to factor in, right? Of how he handles players, how he manages egos, how he handles the locker room, all those different stuff. But from an offensive standpoint alone, really like what I've seen from Curt here the last couple of years. And it's funny is he was previously in Connecticut, then parted ways, and Stephanie replaced him. Mike says, I think the Fever job is the hottest ticket in all of sports right now. It's like the 80s Showtime Lakers. Free agents are watching this. Yes. Very good point, Mike. And I think I touched on it a little earlier, but this is as much about that as anything as well, I think, is you want to make this an as attractive job as possible. So not only to your current players, but you want to go out there and get some free agents. And so other players are watching every team out there. Other players are hearing how players are treated. Other players are seeing the results, and they're not dumb. They know what other teams run. They know the sets. They know execution. And so you want to get a coach that can not only perform well, lead huddles, run the X's and O's, manage egos again, but also someone that free agents want to play for. No doubt about this, because even as I said at the beginning of this Fever season, I'm very curious to see what free agency looks like going into next season, because I think there will be at least a couple veteran players. I know I would be one of them, that if I didn't exactly like my situation, right? There's a lot of teams that just did not have good years. LA, Dallas, for example, Chicago. You might be looking at what happened in Indiana and not just what they did on the court, but elsewhere, and go, that looks like fun. I want to be part of that. I want to go play with Caitlin. I want to be on national TV. I want to make sure my family and friends can always watch my games. That looks like a blast. And so the Fever know that. They're receptive to that. And now they got to embrace that and build upon so much of that. Lisa Bluter for 1 year, that'd be a steep learning curve. I thought about that, but the reality is the WNBA is such a different game. Very different than college. Maybe, yeah, you could. I think it's definitely something you consider. But at the same time, I think it's just a very different and difficult situation. And does that add even more pressure to Caitlin, right? That everyone knows, hey, that's her coach. Did she get her hired? Now, I don't know if that brings in unnecessary pressure. And I don't know that she would be the best coach for the job. Maybe bring her in as a senior advisor, quite frankly. I don't even know if she wants to coach again, but I know that's the obvious connection here. Yeah, Rostam, I mentioned Curt Miller. I think he's one you absolutely would want to consider here. 3 top candidates. Yeah, I kind of touched on it in my story. I think Stephanie White's got to be there. I think Curt Miller would bright for it absolutely be there. And then I think that third one would be a wild card in terms of maybe a college coach that would be attractive enough for what's going on here. That would be my top 3, I think. When does Kathy Engelbert get fired? Tell me soon. I don't know why she would get fired. I wouldn't expect any change there. Engelbert gone soon. Considered that. Wow, you guys don't like her. That's interesting. She definitely had that misstep and something she said and didn't clarify soon enough. But it is important for stability. I love the fact that they hired a commissioner for the first time. Before that, I was always president. The thing I think you have with Kathy is she's business savvy, but sometimes maybe lost touch or didn't read the room perhaps well. The thing I was frustrated with her, for example, about was she too often wants to defer credit to all the rookies and all that. And I'm like, no, at the All-Star game, she laid out these lists of accomplishments and cited several of them directly because of the Fever and Caitlin. So when I got the mic, I asked her, hey, you just mentioned, I forget what the numbers were, but 18 of 21 national TV games were Fever. What has Caitlin meant to the league, and how much do you hope to build upon that growth? And she goes, Caitlin's great, but so is Angel, and this rookie class is fantastic. I don't need that. I do not need your deference to something. I asked a specific question, and I think too many people, Kathy's not alone here. I think too many people in the league were afraid to give Caitlin her due and what she contributed. There's no doubt this rookie class, including Caitlin and Cameron Brink and all those players, were good. But they're not even close to the same level that Caitlin was. And that's the story here. Look at the Fever attendance numbers. Look at the Fever TV ratings, the Fever interest. Look at all you in this live chat right now, not just because of the Fever, but mainly because of Caitlin Clark. She doesn't move the needle, as I like to say. She is the needle. All right, let's get to some more. Hey, Peg Wardo, I appreciate it. Thanks for the support here. Unexpected, but I absolutely appreciate it. It's been a good season covering this Fever team. Been around them since 2003, so I do know that insight certainly helps. And knowing all these parties involved. Now, I do not know Amber Cox. I look forward to get to know her. I do not expect for there to be an introductory press conference with Amber right now, and it's quite obvious, right? You're in the middle of trying to hire a coach. I don't think you have an introductory press conference before you do that, but I do believe it'd be great for fans and media alike to get to know Amber, get to know what she's like, hear from her about the Fever last season and what her and Kelly are thinking going into this upcoming year. The expansion draft coming up in December. That's kind of the real big next date that we'll all be focused and locked in on. Sato, yeah, a lot of you like her. I get that. Bluter's already advising the Fever. Yeah, I don't know about that. At least not in an official capacity, Jeff. I think she's just there to support Caitlin. Caitlin has not gone to Europe to play. She's planning to stay here. I don't think she's planning to play in any league, and why would she? The only negative to all that is you get some rust maybe from not playing in games. But this past weekend, she spent at the University of Iowa back there. I think it was homecoming. They got their rings for the Big Ten championship and for being the runner-up in the NCAA title game. So I know she had a blast being back with Kate Martin, Gabrielle Marshall, and that entire roster. They went to practice. They went to the football game. A lot of fun there, but I know Caitlin's obviously coming back to Indy this week because it's Taylor Swift weekend coming up. And I would expect her certainly at one of those three shows. I'd be surprised if she doesn't go to at least two of them, though. It's also Halloween, and that's one of her favorite holidays. I'll write a story about that coming up as well. So Caitlin will be back in town. She'll be spending most of her time here is what I fully expect. Not only because it's where she has access to a gym, it's her new home, and it's also where her boyfriend Connor McCaffrey lives. And so all those factors support her very well in what she's trying to do and where she's headed right now. But between the combination of her Nike deal, State Farm, Lilly, Gamebridge, all those different deals, Panini, trading cards, she doesn't need to play anywhere just from a financial standpoint. She's set from that level, even though obviously she's only on a rookie contract. But no, she's not playing in Europe. A lot of questions here. Appreciate all of you joining in here on this Sunday. On top of White enabling Caitlin rough play, I am salty about Stephanie abandoned Ketching's post era. She didn't abandon. I don't think of it like that at all. You got to realize the circumstances and the economics of the WNBA, especially in the past. You know what you used to get with the Fever? A 2-year deal, 1 year guaranteed. You know what you get when you go to the college game, like she did? 6-year deal, fully guaranteed. It's a no-brainer. Probably tripled her salary. That's a no-brainer, and you would do it. I would do it. Absolutely. That's what it comes down to. It's not like Steph was trying to leave or was looking to leave. I think she's looking around, would have been interested in the IU job, Purdue job if it opened. Ultimately, that Vanderbilt job opened up. She calls Nashville home now. And that's why I think her getting back to the Midwest would absolutely be appealing, mostly for her family and her able to actually spend time with them throughout the regular season. But do not be salty. She made a decision that was good for her and her family. It had nothing to do with the Fever or the WNBA. It made sense for her long-term success. And in terms of her financial stability, I would have done the exact same thing. Again, she was not looking to leave. What happens with the assistant coaches? Great question, Jenny. A lot of people may not realize this. They're the first ones I always think of when coaches get firing. That, along with training staff, maybe the PR individuals, because a lot of their contracts aren't guaranteed. And the coach usually obviously has a much larger salary and can make do. More so I'm talking with the bigger deals, right? NFL, NBA. But Christie, I'm sure, at least has 1 more year guaranteed. I do not know if that 4th year was a team option. I'm guessing it was. But Rick Fuson gave her a 4-year deal, obviously completing 2 years of that. So what happens with assistant coaches? What will happen is the new head coach will usually meet with them and decide if they want to keep any of them. It's usually that's transparent and straightforward. Usually for assistant coaches are not forced upon the next staff. You do see in the NBA some, like Frank Vogel, I take. right in LA and then in Phoenix, he didn't really get to pick his assistant coaches, especially in LA, right? They named Jason Kidd his top assistant coach. They named a couple others. I don't think that's good or healthy. I think it's important for the head coach to be able to bring their own head assistant coaches and form their own coaching staff because they need to be most comfortable and most confident. And take a look at the IU football program. Part of the reason they are so successful this year is Kirk Cignetti brought with him basically his entire coaching staff essentially from JMU. He only made retained one assistant coach. I think that was the offensive line coach. You have that continuity. You know what to expect. You know what is demanded of all of their coaches. I would expect at least one of the assistant coaches or two to stay around, but you just don't know. Jesse Miller was the coach that worked most closely with Caitlin Clark. But then again, last week, the Fever posted a video of Caitlin in a gym with Paul Miller and Jared Simpson. Jared's been a long-time team employee. Tully Bevilacqua has worked on this staff for quite a while. Kelly brought her in as a point guard. I wouldn't be surprised if she's still around as well. But none of those are, guaranteed spots or whatever. It's on the next head coach to decide who they want around. Great question, though, Jenny. I appreciate all this. And if Christie gets another job, for example, where Christie previously coached in Chicago, in Atlanta, they are both hiring head coaches and need to. Maybe they turn back to a familiar name in Christie. And if that's the case, like another coach coming here, Christie will probably want to take some of her coaching staff with her. That remains to be seen. A lot of questions here. Man, I appreciate this. Can we get some articles on the reffing in the league and what they can do about it? Yeah, that's the trouble, Mike, is that's been an issue for quite a while. I've been in this league a couple decades, and officiating has not been the greatest for a long time. I think we saw in that game 5, the foul called on Smith. That was not a foul, and it should have been a travel, in fact, twice before that. That's just an issue there. Let's see. What else? Love it. Yeah, Caitlin Clark is the needle. I'm telling you. She is. She doesn't move the needle. She is the needle. She sets the tone here. But it's more than just about Caitlin, too. Aaliyah Boston, a staple point here. Kelsey Mitchell. I think she'll consider her free agent options. But again, the Fever can core her. I right now would be surprised if she went anywhere. Now, depending on who's the head coach, maybe they have different conversations, or maybe her eye would be preferred to be outside this fishbowl or whatever. I don't know why it would, but maybe that's the case for her. And if so, maybe you trade her, for example. Those are the things you consider. But right now, I would be definitely surprised if Aaliyah or if, Kelsey Mitchell, are not back. Yeah, absolutely. Scott, tell us low key, who the coach is next. No, I don't just yet. So no. Who do I think is protected? I think you have those 3 obvious names right there. I think I would throw Lexi Hull in that bunch. There's 4. I don't have it off the top of my mind. That's something we'll get to here coming up. Do I hear any issues between players and the coaching staff this year? There are certainly seemingly some. Nalissa Smith was not happy about her role. I was curious about how Christy Wallace accepted her role. Right. That's just got to be difficult from a human standpoint to go from starting to not even in the rotation. But specific examples, nothing outside of really Nalissa Smith. I know she was terribly unhappy about the way in which this season went for her. So, yeah, someone mentioned it above. I would be surprised if she is brought back, no doubt. Scott, if we get the Swifties as the Clark fan base is going to be the biggest in the world. Yeah, absolutely. No doubt. I think Caitlin Clark is on a similar trajectory, but with music, there's that worldwide appeal. But here in the United States, Caitlin's kind of right below her. She's that level, I think, taking off like we saw in the past with Michael Jordan. And she's doing to the game for women and such like Tiger Woods did a little bit for golf as well. That comes to mind. Let's see. I already answered about officiating. Yeah, I love that, Evelyn. I'm now a Butler, Iowa Fever Pacers fan because of those two. I'm sure you're referencing Caitlin and Connor McCaffrey right there. That's funny. Good stuff. Do you think they will change venues to sell more tickets? No. If you're talking about the Fever, no. You play games at Gainbridge Fieldhouse and sell out 17,274. I would be interested to see the All-Star game? What if you move that with Caitlin Clark and her home here in Indianapolis? What if you move that to Lucas Oil Stadium? How big could you fill that up? That's one of the things I'd be interested in. But we'll see. Many are very impressed by the GM and president. Yep. What's up with reffing in the NBA? A lot of refs comments here tonight. I know it's been troubling, but yeah, that's crazy. Let's see. Man, it's hard to keep up with all these comments. Yeah, I think I agree with you there. Unrivaled is hypocrisy, says they don't need Fever fans. I thought it was interesting how so many players didn't seem to embrace or welcome Caitlin, but now a lot that maybe are doing the Unrivaled say they really want her or whatever. That just doesn't add up. I completely agree. What about coaches from the Pacers coming over? Jeff, that was the other thing I mentioned in my story today was what about Jenny Busick, right? Been a head coach in the WNBA, been on a championship team. I think it would be much better for her lifestyle, raising a young child who's probably 5, 6, I think, at this point. The thing is, she also has a really good situation with a coach she admires in Rick Carlisle. So remember, Kelly, the team president now of the Fever, just spent the last 6 years as assistant general manager of the Pacers. So she has been there 3 or 4 years with Jenny Busick, 4 years now. So she's very familiar with Jenny, and that's absolutely someone I would consider. And I think Jenny is an outstanding coach. I think she will be a head coach again if she wants it. Could even be in the NBA. That she would definitely be on my list as well here moving forward. But I do not know. I've not been able to ask her if this is a job that she would be interested in. Yeah, Steph's definitely planning on doing commentary. She's already been announced to be part of ESPN's NBA on TV crew. So you will already see Steph if that's what you're asking about. Absolutely. Hoops fan Scott, I appreciate your reporting. Wanted to know if you reported or heard any issues, players and coaching staff. I think I talked about that a little bit earlier. Nothing significant. The challenge and all that, quite frankly, is they don't open locker rooms. And so that's really makes it difficult for us reporters to gain a relationship with these players. And there was too many times this year. This is just a big misstep by the Players Association and the WNBA, because instead of talking to different players throughout post game after many different games, maybe to role players or someone who made a big defensive stand, instead what we normally get is the head coach and 2 players post game, and that is it. Now, others are available upon request, but that just becomes difficult. There's been several times when that's not been possible or they're rushing out. They got to open up locker rooms again, and it would be best not only for the league, for the media, but these players as well. I truly feel bad for players 4 to 12 on the roster. Grace Berger didn't get enough time to write about her. Lexi Hall didn't get enough time to write about her this season. Timmy Fagbenle, same thing, although she was injured during much of it. Would have liked to write about her a lot more. Katie Lou, what happened with her throughout the year and the different highs and lows she felt physically and emotionally. Those are the stories that just don't get written, and instead we focus more on the stars because they're available a lot more often. And on top of that, they're producing more on the court. Dosky says they already have their coach or they would not have fired Sides. I generally agree with that because I think Kelly, again, is a smart executive. She knows how to run a coaching search. I would add to that the coach that they think they want. I think they would have an understanding that that individual, he or she, is available, even if it hadn't crossed the finish line or agreement hadn't reached. But there's conversations you have with agents. You can lean upon relationships throughout the league. And I think they know this is an in-demand job. This is the most coveted opening right now of the 6 in the WNBA, and they're going to have basically their pick here, or at least they should. A professional coach complimenting Clark's play, a coach standing up for Fever players. I was discussing when Asia said she felt unsafe directly after Hamby's verbally abuse. I don't remember Asia Wilson saying that. I could be wrong. I do remember the Connecticut players saying some of that. Thanks for your reporting. Appreciate it, Mitch. Thanks for joining on. And all of you, over 500. Wow. Incredible live here that I'm doing here Sunday night. If you missed it earlier, you can watch a replay, or I will post the audio on the Fieldhouse Files podcast for you to join me there. I would love Natasha Cloud with the Fever and Clark. Absolutely. I thought it was notable, Natasha Cloud, as well as, I forget her name, the girl in Phoenix, Sophie Cunningham. She already said on a podcast this past week that she hopes to play with Caitlin before her career is over with. They got to know each other a little bit during that. And so I think she just re-signed, though, with Phoenix. So that would have to be a trade if you talked about it soon. But I'm telling you, there are players across the league that sees what's going on in Indiana and they want to be part of it. They see the national TV. They see the jersey sales. They see the endorsements that come along. We've seen Erica Wheeler, having fans pay for her dinner went out. We see Lexi Hall getting brand deals. Aaliyah Boston with her Adidas deal, she was featured in Times Square over the past week. Not only do the players benefit on the court from the win standpoint, from visibility, but they're also benefiting from their pocket because people want to be associated with this team. It's just something special. Oh, still got a lot more questions here. Let me see if I can get caught up. Basketball Rocks agree. Open the locker rooms, 100%. Eleanor Fox, Cheryl Miller as head coach. I'd be surprised at that. She really hadn't coached in a while. We don't know what she is like as a head coach outside of the All-Star game when Team USA was upset by the All-Stars. Let's see here. What about Mark Jackson? Man, that's a totally different game. I'd like to see Mark Jackson get another shot at it in the NBA. Coming to the WNBA, that's a very different situation. Is Indiana and Iowa like cousins now with Clark and the McCaffreys? Yeah, that's pretty funny. Basically, McCaffreys have basically moved into Indiana, right? Patrick and Connor now at Butler, their youngest brother Jack going over there, Caitlin here. So that's pretty funny. All right. Let's see. How aware are you regarding the YouTube channels covering Caitlin and the Fever? I know mine, and I know the Fever, and I know a lot of people lean in on big headlines to wrongfully report things or talk about things because of fan interest. Those annoy me. And so I've reported some of those as they grab stuff and don't use things fairly or appropriately to have the full context. If that's what you're asking about. Scott, Fever got a real and huge fan base in the millions. Yeah, they absolutely do. I mean, just look at the social media, the YouTube interest, the TV viewing. Caitlin plays in that game too. That's not against an NFL Sunday, and they get over almost 2.5 million viewers. Incredible number, I think, was on that Tuesday. So there's a real opportunity here. I think Mel Raines, Kelly Krauskopf recognize that with the Indiana Fever right now, and that's why they know they have to maximize this window. It is really hard to keep up with all these comments. I apologize. Fever got it. Yeah, I read that one. Cunningham is a Missouri player. Midwest girls sticking together. I think you're right, Mitch. How soon before Stephanie White is announced? Hey, nothing new to report there. I apologize, but there's just nothing new on that front right now. Trade Smith, get Kate Martin. I did laugh at the fact that the Fever drafted Celeste Taylor, right, out of Ohio State, and 3 picks later goes Kate Martin. You could have helped support Caitlin early on with her best friend and a solid player who could knock down the outside shot, and you waive Celeste Taylor. I have no problem with that pick, except if you're waiving her later on and don't give her a real opportunity, you might as well surround Caitlin and make her even more comfortable, as I tweeted and wrote about that last year. I saw that Times Square and Target commercials. Absolutely. Aaliyah's just 22 like Caitlin, so she's getting a lot of interest from brands, and I expect her back with ESPN doing commentating again this upcoming season. She did a great job with that and should be in front of the cameras, media, and all that more. She's a hoot to deal with. A lot of fun. Scott, do you want to be in the Caitlin Clark fan club group? No, I'm good, but I appreciate it. Erica White, I think you mean Erica Wheeler, is gone. Yeah, she should be a free agent. So that opens up money here. Scott, who are you excited to see enter the league in 2025? Let's save that for a different conversation. I like to see the players get through their season, but certainly, there's a couple players at USC and Notre Dame, all that different stuff. But right now, focus still on the Fever and what's going on there. Yeah, men's and women's game, totally different. I agree. You need someone that is experienced, veteran coach that has already coached the women's game. They already know the dynamics of the league. That's important. There's a lot that goes on, a lot of conversations, a lot of circumstances. And on top of that, how the game moves, flows, officiated, all those certain things you want. All right, let's see. Aces will keep Kate Martin just so she won't go to the Fever. I doubt that. They have such a talented roster that you can only core 6 players. I'm not sure that Kate would fit that bill if you're talking about her. Jess says, "What are your thoughts on the mainstream media's concerted effort to promote Reese and diminish Caitlyn?" I don't know if anyone's making. I don't think anyone's making a concerted effort to diminish Caitlyn. But as I alluded to earlier, I think it is unfair to kind of put them on the same pedestal to say they are raising the league entirely. That they're Magic and Bird. No, no, no. Caitlyn's up here. Angel's great and is right here, but they're not even in the same stratosphere. I think that's what I've tried to adequately describe throughout the season. Um, Angel absolutely exceeded all expectations by me and probably everyone out there. I think it was a joke that and sad and disappointing that one media member who remains anonymous made sure that Caitlyn didn't get a MVP vote, I think, and also that she wasn't a unanimous Rookie of the Year. Rookie class was great, but as I emphasized, Caitlyn is in a whole different stratosphere. Not being from Indy, love your photos behind the scenes, facility, and more, please. Okay, got it, Jen. I enjoy posting that stuff as well. Sometimes I never know if I'm oversharing, if I'm sharing too much behind the scenes, or if my Instagram story is 10 deep. Do you really like that? I hate when it's someone's birthday and they reshare stuff and it's 30 wide. But good to take that into account. I like sharing that stuff as well, and that's the stuff I really take pride in showing the details and the different things to try to help take you where you can't be. Because look, I realize a lot of you fans are not in Indiana. You're not in Indianapolis. You might not even be in the Midwest. So I take pride in taking you wherever I go. Are they interviewing the new coaches just yet? Sort of bummed. I thought Christie did a great job. I'm guessing that will begin this week. I'm sure conversations were happening behind the scenes. I have not talked to anyone directly at the top with the Fever just yet about what's next and where this is headed. But you don't make a decision like this without knowing what's next, what's available, and where you're headed. Do the Fever have a recruiter in Europe? Don't believe so. They do have scouts. They do have coaching staff, and obviously that's something that Kelly Krauskopf and new general manager Amber Cox will spend time on. Is the scouting process and getting around to games and doing all that again. I don't believe they have a European scout. The Pacers have 2 of them. I do not think the Fever do, but that's a question I'll ask. I'm curious as well as you. Is Kelsey Mitchell going to stay with the Fever? I would expect that, but I don't think it's a certainty. Again, they can core her, which is kind of like the franchise tag, allowing her to stay here on a contract that's kind of set. But my guess is she would want something long term. Maybe the Fever would like that as well. They're going to have some money to spend as some players come off the books and they reassess this roster. I mean, the fact that you've had a new general manager, new head coach, coaching staff, you're not going to run it back with this team. You're just not. There's several changes you're going to want to make. You want to find players that fit this system, that fit this coaching staff, and that you think can take off. They obviously need to add size. I think that's one of the biggest things physically is they got to get bigger. You look around the league and the Fever were undersized at every single position. Secondly, you need to add experience. You need veterans to handle situations, to help handle the locker room, to help handle adversity and provide that experience late in games. Kelsey is absolutely, I think, the number one priority for this Fever front office outside now of hiring a coaching staff. Let's see here. Mick talks. Gotcha. Thanks for passing along those names. Is there any way not to recycle coaches? Why do they fire them only to hire them on another team? Well, for one, I think there's a lack of elite coaches right now if we're talking the WNBA in particular. Secondly, if you're talking about Steph in particular, they did not fire her. She left to go to Vanderbilt, and they were disappointed but understanding that they left. That she left. It's just a matter of the contract situation. You can get a lot more money and stability when it comes to college coaching. Still can, I think. Although we're starting to see salaries increase across the league. I think this mic is he goes down. We'll finish up holding it. I think I've talked so much that this mic stand went down, but adversity is no problem for us here. Let's answer some more of these questions. Who is that media member? Should have the courage? Yeah, we do not know. I checked in with the league, and it continues to be something they do not want to publish. I like the fact, guys, that several years ago, the NBA decided to make all votes in terms of postseason awards public. I think that's important for transparency, and I think it's important also for holding media members available. I did like the fact, to the WNBA's credit, that they made sure to have at least 2 media members from all 12 markets. And why I point that out is because in the NBA, nobody in this market has a vote, and I think that's wrong. I think you need to have every market represented. And we saw some foolish votes in the NBA, especially overseas. I mean, I think Domantas Sabonis and I love the guy, but the guy got top 5 vote, I think, for MVP. And I also think he got a vote for Defensive Player of the Year. And that's just not worthy. So I would love to see the WNBA officially make that stuff public starting next season. We'll see. And if I'm that media member, you're probably not coming forward. You just wanted to prove a point. Clearly, it was personal, because nobody who watches the game would say Caitlin's not the unanimous MVP, but because of one media member out of 67, I think it was, she is not. Likely wait for Amber press conference till they announce a new coach. No, I think we'll get to know Amber probably either at that press conference when they introduce the next head coach or after that. But I am not expecting, say, a press conference this week with Amber Cox just to get to know her, because, look, we would all focus not on her, but on the coaching hire and who they've talked to and what they're looking for and those certain things. But I do think she owes it to media and fans to get in front of the mic and share her values and her philosophy, because she's been doing this a long while. And what's her relationship like with Kelly Krauskopf and what that will look like, that dynamic moving forward. We love the behind the scenes and IG stories. All right, well, I got a lot more coming for you, although it is the off season, actually, so I shouldn't make that promise. Right now, it's pretty quiet. Do you think Fever fans took too much blame for terrible online trolls? Absolutely, Hoops fan. No doubt. Those weren't Fever fans. Those were not. Those were bots. I think those were individuals who were using that platform and the Fever and Caitlin to try to dispel a message or dispel an ideal. I don't think random Fever fan in Central Indiana or in the Midwest gives a hoot or was trying to start anything by any means. I thought that was good about what the Fever and Caitlin and the individuals all had to say is those are not Fever fans. Those are not basketball fans. I think those, if anything, now in a election year, those felt dirty and gross, and that's why I didn't spend too much time. Right or wrong, you might disagree, but that's why I didn't spend too much time on it. Obviously, we can all agree a lot of the hurtful comments were bad, or no, all of the hurtful comments were bad, especially the derogatory, the things that weren't criticizing the game. I think it was Stephanie in her post-game press conference in Connecticut said it right. Fair criticism of a player's game is good. That means we've advanced to the level where you're not just saying it's cute that the game's going on and progressing, but you can absolutely be critical. It's when you're targeting. It's when you're calling out and being hateful. No place of that in any game or in life. And so, no, I do not think those were Fever fans. I think that was others who were just joining in on the fun, although that wasn't very fun. But they were trying to jump on the bandwagon, maybe, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah. When is Amber's press conference? No press conference set right now. I think right now the full focus is on hiring a head coach. Appreciate the question, DMB. Great show. Appreciate that, Jerry. Thanks for you and everybody tuning in. Let's see if we can get to 1,000. I've already talked for 50 minutes almost, and we're almost at 600 plus concurrent viewers. So I appreciate that. And that speaks quite honestly to what the next coaching staff's entering here. It is a rabid fan base. There's a lot of interest in Caitlin and Aaliyah and Kelsey and what this Indiana Fever team is doing. When they'll play, there will be 1 million viewers guaranteed on national TV. Merchandise sales will probably be even better next year. That's a pressure cooker that this next head coach has to understand and recognize. Sides will be the next Sky coach. You can bet on it. A couple people thinking that. I don't know. If I'm her, if someone offers me a job, I think because she's only had one head coaching job, I do think you take it. Otherwise, with the Fever paying you already at least one more year, I would assume. I guess I should confirm that it's not a team option. But if you're her, I don't think you want to sit out. I think you want to carry in what you learned this past season, get out of the Caitlin bubble and this Fever bubble, and try to go thrive elsewhere. I think she can be a good coach, no doubt. What the Fever are looking for here is more experience from all standpoints. Live from Honolulu. Wow, that's incredible. So I appreciate that. Thanks for joining in here. A lot more questions quickly filing in here. Oh my goodness. I love that Janelle says, I love that you were a ball boy for the team. What a great gig. Thanks for the info. Yeah, appreciate it. That's how I got my start in sports. It actually goes back before basketball. It was with the RCA tennis championships here in Indianapolis. So did that, then Fever Ball Kid, then Pacer Ball Kid, now in the media over the last decade plus. So that included 10 years with the Fever. I have a jersey here actually to commemorate that, but have not hung it up here. Of course, when rivaled, if they want her, is going to offer a lot of money, but Caitlin's making a ton of money by herself. She doesn't need it. Timmy Fack Benley and Erica Wheeler, are they back next year? Timmy, I think so. Wheeler, I think that to be determined, and at what cost, right? Free agents right now. Nah, I haven't really got there just yet, Chris. We got a long ways to go in the off season, and it's not really something I've been focused on since I moved right into the Pacers season. So I haven't really focused on free agents just yet, especially knowing I think a coaching change was coming. And here's why I say that. During our opening press conference, we didn't get anything authoritatively moving forward about Christie Sides and her coaching staff. Kelly said, I was impressed what she did. I was impressed with the rebuild. I liked the way they finished the season, but there was nothing like, hey, I'll say it right now, she's my head coach. And I think if you knew that, you would say that. So I don't criticize her for not doing that, but I thought it was telling. And here we are a month later. I thought Kelly did a great job clearly of talking with individuals around the team who were in it every single day. Because remember, Kelly, the new president, old president back as a new president, she was not there every day. She was across the other building at the Ascension St. Vincent Center as the assistant general manager for the Pacers. So it's important for her to do the legwork and talk to everyone on the team, talk to every coaching staff member, read media clippings, and catch up on anything you missed. And notably, I saw where Kelly was at probably 4 to 5 games at least throughout the season. So she was there. And so there you go. Let's see here. How much longer you guys want me to keep going? See how much bigger we can get here would be a lot of fun. Coach Jim Z says, I was really liking Coach Sides. Yeah, I can see why. Absolutely. I thought she did a good job of adapting and being more creative in what she was doing, and also realizing, look, you got to put the ball more in Caitlin's hands, and it would be nice to be able to play her off the ball some. You want to get out and play fast. Defense still needs to make more improvements, but they did make some improvement. The first month out of the Olympic break, they moved up to 5th in defensive rating, so that's a positive. Let's take at least a couple of more here. I think Caitlin avoiding unrivaled and being loyal to the NBA and WNBA will pay off in the long run. I think it's more so a matter of she doesn't need to take that money. Maybe if the stake in the league, for example, is big enough and TNT is going to broadcast the games, they're getting a stake in the network. Maybe if that big enough, it'll be worth it. But right now, she's played basketball for a year round. And it is so rare too, by the way, for an individual to be in the spotlight for a year round. She hadn't had a significant break. Hey, appreciate that, Crash Out King. I love you Fever fans and Caitlin fans, man. Y'all are the best. Coming in here, throwing money my way, being engageful, being respectful of everyone, and making this a fun conversation. I'm really enjoying that. And thanks for anyone who's contributed, or if you just listen or taken part of the conversation, I appreciate that as well. As for who the Pacers will protect, in the upcoming expansion draft, I think we'll get into that a little bit later on. Let's see who the new head coach is, because then you might change the final spot or two based on those. But I think we kind of know Kelsey, Aaliyah, Caitlin. I'd probably throw Alexi Hall in there. Maybe you do a Nalissa Smith and then trade her or whatever. I think it's clear that both sides will separate. Then again, maybe a new head coach comes in and that's the fresh start that Nalissa needs. Now, we'll see. Keep it going, Chris says. All right. Finally found my channel. Hey, subscribe and let's go. Keep it moving. We're almost at 10,000 subscribers. The majority of you guys coming over. I think maybe 7 of the 10 coming just this summer. So it's so great to have all of you. I need to do a weekly show on the Fever. Is there an audience for that? Would you guys be interested in that if I did a weekly show, whether it be on here or whether it be just a podcast? If so, give me a like or let me know in the comments. I will if you guys are interested. If there's enough interest right there. We can absolutely do that. We can bring on people to talk about things and what's going on with the league. Yeah, no problem. Caitlin doesn't need to risk injury. Yeah, I agree with that, West Coast Life. You're absolutely right. Does not need to. Hannah Sulky in the 2026 draft. She'll run all day. That's funny. Oh, wow. Yes, yes, yes. Oh, my goodness. All right. Instagram lives, I can do those as well. Wow, I am impressed with all this interest. So I appreciate that, first of all. Good to have you all on here for this live stream. Maybe I'll go live at the next press conference after the fact and do some stuff live from the Fieldhouse as well, if that's the stuff you guys are wanting. I'm open to anything. I love it. I love the engagement. I love the commentary, and I like you guys being respectful as well of everything that's going on. Do you or will you do these lives on a regular basis? It sure sounds like I'll do more of these, Jen. Yeah, absolutely. Let's plan on them. Maybe we'll do a specific date. The trouble is, for those that are just getting to know me or new, is my main job has been to cover the Fever now for the 13th season. So I've gone right into the Pacer season from the Fever, and that overlapped towards the end of the Pacer season. So there really has not been much in an off season for me. But look, we're almost at an hour of me talking. And if anything, this thing has gone way up. So I appreciate you guys. Weekly show. Let's go. Weekly show. All right. I should stay on YouTube. Your content's the best. We would love it. All right. Well, maybe I'll have to do that. Adam, appreciate it. Got to keep me busy. Oh, you guys and Fever, the Pacers. I got the Mad Ants. I cover the G League as well here. I broadcast IU Indy games. I'm going to broadcast some Butler games as well. So I have a full plate in store here, but it sure sounds like I need to create a Fever podcast. I'm surprised actually there's not one. I just did not have time this past year, to be honest, between Pacers and Fever. And if you haven't known by now, check out my website, fieldhousefiles.com. I wrote about Christie Sides. That's the number one place where you'll get my work. I'll also obviously come on here on YouTube and the Fieldhouse Files podcast. But if you did not know, all my writings at fieldhousefiles.com. So you can subscribe there. You can get free, but you're going to get most of the stuff behind the paywall as well. Yes, talk some Pacers too. Go get some coffee. Yeah, man. I live on coffee, even more so right now. Greg, appreciate it. Sierrian, appreciate it. Another super donation. Shout out to Robin. Does this mean the Fever need to pay Sides $400,000 for the next 2 years? I need to check on the circumstances. I know Christie said it was a 4-year deal that she signed up for. I would assume at least the 4th year was a team option. I don't know about this 3rd year, so I need to check on that. So I don't want to give you the wrong answer there. By when will the Fever have a new head coach? I wouldn't think it'd be too long. I wouldn't be surprised if it's this week, only because they've had a month. Kelly Krauskopf's new GM starts Monday. I think you get right to work. If I need to find out here in the coming days who they've talked to and the directions they're headed, but it would not surprise me if they hire someone in the next couple of days. I think it'd be more of the individuals if that's the case. But I would not anticipate this taking more than a year or two. Hey, new people already subscribing to my Fieldhouse Files, so I appreciate that. Do I cover Butler too? Evelyn, I appreciate that. I do not generally. No, I stick to the Pacers, Fever, Mad Ants, the pros at the Fieldhouse. But I needed time to get to it. But I went over to Butler recently and talked with Connor McCaffrey for about a month about this new opportunity moving from the Pacers to Butler men's basketball and being hired by Thad Matta to be one of his top assistant coaches. There's, I think, 4 or 5 assistant coaches, and he's one of them. He replaced Greg Oden. Everybody knows Greg Oden, right? So there we go. Wendy, excellent explanation of the firing. Appreciate it. Glad it was concise and clear for you. And again, more of my comments at fieldhousefiles.com. Podcast would blow up. You know some stuff. All right. I'll get to it. I think I'm getting the point here. Need Caitlin to get the 22 hat. Yeah, absolutely. I think, though, that won't happen only because the 22 hat, talking about Taylor Swift, has always gone to a young kid. So for that reason, I would not expect it, although that would be such a thrill, obviously, right here in Indianapolis and one of Taylor's last shows during the Eras Tour. Let's see. They need to sign a coach before another team snatches them up. Of course, but keep in mind, this is the job. This is the hot job. If you're in play for the Fever job, you're not going to take another job until you know you're out of this running. Believe me, this is the job you want. this is something special about it. Elizabeth says, what about Bluter? Talking about Lisa Bluter. I doubt that. She's not coached in the WNBA, and I think that's very different than college, both in terms of style of play on the court, the fit there, and in terms of managing a roster and salaries rather than college players. I think we saw at Iowa, where it was very much Caitlin and then a cast of role players that were very well and worked in tandem. It's a very different game here. Now, obviously, she knows the game of basketball, no doubt about that, but there would be a learning curve there. And I think it would apply undue pressure on Caitlin. And I think you have to understand that and realize, do you want to do that? Who was the highest paid player on the Fever last year? It was Erica Wheeler. I think almost $225,000, I think, if I believe right. Do I foresee any other teams parting ways with their coaches? We've had 6 so far. Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. Well, the fact that Stephanie White's in the conversation, I wouldn't be surprised there. Then obviously the Connecticut Sun would need a new head coach. That would mean 7 openings. I feel like that might be the number, but we'll see. Hi from the Big Island. Great content. Aloha. Man, I need to go to Hawaii. That would be incredible. How come Caitlin does press conferences before and after each game? Shouldn't pregame be used for game prep? I know she is gracious with her time. Great question, Jason. I do want to explain this because a lot of people were criticizing this. Here's the thing there. Players have always been made available pregame. The difference is there's not a lot of interest in other players pregame. However, with Caitlin, there's a lot of demand in her. There's media members, and we obviously see the number of fans that show out every single game just to hear from Caitlin. So what they did do is after the first month of the season, they didn't make her talk at shoot around as well, because for the first month of the season, she was talking about 45 minutes on game days. And as she joked, although really wasn't joking, she was talking to us in the media more than her family. And that just isn't right, but she does need to be available. And so what they did too was she didn't just talk pregame, but they moved her pregame conversations to press room where it could accommodate more people, where it could have a Zoom feed, where it could be live video, in addition to those on the court, where also you can't really hear. I hate those conversations. I don't think they're very helpful. But all players are made available pregame if you request them. It's just the demand is unlike any other for Caitlin. And I think she's just doing her professional responsibility in talking pregame and postgame. The fans want it, the media want it, and she's living up to that. And I'll give her credit. Not once did she turn down media. There was one shoot around where a couple of us wanted to talk to. She wanted to get treatment. She got treatment and still came out afterwards. So she's a true pro and has handled it very, very well. But I think that should continue, by the way. Let's get a couple more. This has gone over an hour. I can't believe so many of you are still here. More than 500 of you concurrent. This is incredible. Coach Gen Z, I didn't quite understand what I was saying about Caitlin not getting MVP. What I was saying there was I was disappointed and frustrated that there was one voter who left her off the ballot for MVP. Not number 1 MVP, but top 5. And probably the same voter was the only one to not vote her for Rookie of the Year. She got all but 1 vote. Angel Reese got 1 vote. That's what I was alluding to. Caitlin certainly should have been considered for MVP, just what she did for her team in the league. But I understand A'ja Wilson winning. That's what I was getting at there. 10 players that can run and play defense. The scoring will be there. Absolutely, Jerry. I don't think it's that complicated. Why do you think Kurt Miller would be a good coach? He seems to have losses over wins. I think he's a brilliant basketball mind. I think he's really good offensively. I think he's really good X's and O's. I do wonder about just relationships and how he handles people and the tone and all that different stuff. Clearly got fired from the last job, although I didn't quite understand that because a lot of players spoke up for him. They were having a rebuilding year. They had injuries, so I was surprised by that. But Kurt can definitely coach. It's the other stuff that you'd want to consider here. Which available coach is great with the media? That needs to be under consideration. Remember, Kurt was one of the coaches, by the way, that stuck out because he highlighted Caitlin and talked about how good she was for her team in the league. And so that stuck with me as well. Wheeler has coaching potential. I could see that. Absolutely. I don't know if she wants to get into that. I haven't had that conversation with her, but I could see that she has that experience and the fact that she's willing to lead, clearly knows the game, has been a pro for 10 plus years. That would be interesting. Oh, hell no. Please get a female coach for the Fever. I don't know about that, Candy. I don't care what they look like or male or female. I want them to get the best coach possible for this fit. That's what you should be wanting here. I don't care male or female. That doesn't matter to me, at least. Does Caitlin ever say, yeah, this is too much press? Because it's definitely a lot. Yeah, that's kind of what I was alluding to earlier when she was talking 3 times a day on game days. She has never publicly said it outside of that one little comment. I think she understands what she does for the game and how much her voice matters and how much little girls and little boys listen to her and appreciate that. So I think she definitely understands being a pro and being this big of a figure and what comes with that. But I mean, at All-Star game, she even joked, hey, get your questions in now. This is the last time you're going to hear from me for a couple weeks. So she's definitely self-aware. She's very good with the media. She's very good in the public eye. She's so mature and wise beyond her years at just 22 years old. I do not know if they're talking to Coach Trammell. I do not. It is too much media on her. They are looking for a soundbite. No, I don't think it's too much media. She's doing exactly what a lot of the NBA stars are doing. If you want equal treatment, it goes right there. I don't think there's any problem with that. Yeah, Doug, I talked about that rumor. I saw that from Annie in Chicago. I text Stephanie, as I alluded to earlier, for those that are joining, have not heard back from her. So I do not have an update directly from her. I've been trying to get in touch with other sources involved in the situation, but right now, nothing more to pass along just yet. Obviously, I think there would be mutual interest. How much interest? That's to be determined. We'll see. I think we'll learn more in the coming days. Let's see. A couple more. A weekly show depends. I don't want content made up in order to fill a time slot. Also, there is news the next day. I don't think that's worthwhile to wait 6 days after it's old. Yeah, I agree with that, Frank. Maybe it's just more of a timely podcast, or maybe it's just a basketball conversation, right? I'm not one to make up conversation, make up storylines. I do notice there are some YouTube pages doing that, and that frustrates the hell out of me. To me, those aren't interesting. I try not at all to write those salacious headlines that you'll never believe what Christie Sides or Caitlin Clark said. None of those. That's trash to me. That's bad journalism. That's not even journalism. That's just feeding on the hungry, I guess. All right, couple more here, and then back to work. Again, if you missed the beginning of it, oh my goodness, we're almost at 600 live viewers. We're at the max we've already had, and I'm over an hour into this. You Fever Caitlin fans are incredible. I love you guys. Thanks for jumping on here, and I just know it's mutual here. I love this. 2 different comments, 2 different opinions. That's what's great. Bring on Stephanie White, and another one says no White, please. I think that's interesting. I don't think you could hurt CC's feelings. I forget what that's in terms of. The league needs to work on scoring. I'm sorry, but the game 5 score was embarrassing. Well, to that point, it was they were allowing a lot more physical play, and you're right. There was a couple sequences that were not good for the league. That did not look sharp. That did not look good by any means. I think you're starting to see this league get even better. And that's why you're at an exciting time right now, both for the Fever and for the league. So you want to maximize that, right? And I think you're going to see a new influx of talent in the next coming years, right? Paige Beckers, Juju Watkins are the first 2 that come to mind. So that's very interesting. By the way, got a question about Lynn Dunn. Right now, she's a senior advisor for the team. So she's been interim GM, then GM here as of late. In her new role, she is senior advisor. Remember, Kelly Krauskopf hired her as an assistant coach, then as a head coach. And then when things didn't work out here recently, she was brought back to be the interim GM and then stayed in that role for a couple years. And much like Christie Sides, she was brought in to do a very different job. And so now Kelly's back, and at least as of now, Lynn she's not retiring. I can never see Lynn Dunn getting away from basketball and getting out of it. When she was done with the Fever, she went into Connecticut and was a senior advisor there, maybe even assistant coach for a couple more years, then brought back. She's a lifer in basketball, and that's what I love about her. Do I think it was unfair for Caitlin to be held to societal issues this year? A little bit, absolutely. People were trying to blame her for not speaking out. She just wants to talk about basketball. She is focused on basketball. That's it. And she condemns things several times, and then people wanted her to talk more about that. And if anything, I think that would have been the wrong thing. We do not need, she doesn't have to answer for other people's actions. I don't think. She did what she needed to do, but look, she's here for basketball. She's also 22 and in the spotlight. And it was nothing she said or did. And so I think a lot of that was unfair. Absolutely. Doug agrees college is not the same as the WNBA. White is a defensive coach. The Fever's defense was horrible last year. Yeah, a lot of that is personnel too, by the way. Breon January would be fantastic as an assistant coach, I think, with her defense. She was with Stephanie White this past year, former Fever player, all-star guard. If Steph was here, I would expect and love to see Breon January on that staff as well. I love how I keep saying a few more, and then I get a loaded group of questions, and I can't keep up with it, but I'm trying. Is the W going through a cleansing to professionalize their appearance to sponsors? Yeah, I don't know about that. Yeah, I don't think so. Nothing I've noticed, at least. Grace Berger outlook. I think she just needs more of an opportunity. I thought she unfairly did not get enough opportunity, and I think Lexi Hall is a good example maybe of that, as she was out of the rotation, then played a few minutes, but then when she got a regular role, she thrived. I think there is a place for Grace, certainly not maybe a starter at all on this Fever team, but I think she could be a ninth, 10th man, absolutely. But I still need to see more. And the other thing I will emphasize is after the first half of the Fever season, we didn't really get to watch practice. It's a big contrast on how things looked and felt after the start of the season. The start of the year, we were in there for about the final 40 minutes of practice on day one of training camp. After that, though, things changed a lot after the first month or two. And then I would say after July, we didn't watch a second of practice. We were lucky to get video and see them shooting free throws. I would hope to see that change a little bit. I keep blocking those sites. I assume you're talking about those salacious headlines and that thing that I was talking. Yeah, those headlines drive me bonkers. I totally agree, because it's just not fair to the individuals. It's just trying to get you diehard fans to click on it only for the video or the story to be completely false, or lacking context. Thank you for talking to us. You're welcome, Adam. It's feeding the YouTube algorithm. Yeah, and I don't like that. Cheryl Miller, Mark Jackson. Mark Jackson makes zero sense to me. And Cheryl Miller, I'm not sure she wants to be a head coach again. John the Liquidator might as well call himself. Yeah, that's one guilty party for sure. The league needs to spell its players' names correctly. Where's that been an issue? Maybe I missed that. The league has not addressed officiating. No, they haven't talked about that or how they want to get better. But they definitely need to, especially as more eyes are on the league right now. That's unacceptable. You're absolutely right. Let's see. What else do we have here? This is a long, I expect to come on here, guys, for like 20 minutes, 25 minutes. And here we are 75 minutes later and still going stronger than ever. You guys are incredible. Cheryl Miller, higher game over for the WNBA. Y'all like her. That's interesting. It's good to get this feedback. I don't think we've seen enough from her as a head coach, especially in the WNBA. Thoughts on a potential backlash of hiring a head coach with White? Joking. There you go. Being good and being exciting are not the same thing. Lexi is a hell of a role player. I totally agree. I don't think she'll be a starter moving forward, but she definitely fit the bill with this roster. She did the dirty work. She provided defense. She knocked down threes. That's important. Finals cannot go to 7 games. The girls know the opponents too well. Starting next year, the finals will go to 7 games. And on top of that, because of Fever and Caitlin, they adjusted the first round to ensure that every team, as they should, gets at least one home game. I can't believe that was not a rule before. It seems silly that the Fever had the best attendance, and yet they didn't get a home game. Every team in the playoffs should get at least one home game, So that is adjusted going into next year. The first team in the All-NBA spelled it Caitlin. That's spelled correctly. Maybe you messed it up there. Any news on Nike and Clark? It's like they were trying to shelf Clark. You're right, Mike. I don't get it. Here's my theory on all that. They don't want Caitlin and her signature shoe to overshadow Asia Wilson and them launching that. And I know firsthand from Paul George launching a signature shoe here in Indy, it takes about 2 years to launch it. So it's not right away. Although if you're Nike, I'm surprised they did not fast track a shoe for Caitlin. But it was sad and embarrassing, quite frankly, how little Nike did to capitalize, I thought, on Caitlin this year. So good point. I would totally agree, Mike. Celeste Taylor, a name you're bringing up. Yeah, you didn't see much of an opportunity for her. I would have liked to see her more. I couldn't speak up for her One, because never really got a chance to talk with her outside of training camp and hear how things were going, nor were we able to watch practice and understand what was and what was seen. And usually, I rely on the coaches. They see something in practice. They see something during that time when we're not around, and that's why a player is not getting in there. So I'd like to give them the benefit of the doubt. A couple more here. Caitlin should get paid more. She is the needle. Yeah, I agree. She is the needle, but there's a collective bargaining agreement. There's a rookie salary structure, just like Luka and LeBron and the NBA should have got paid more than their rookie deals. That's how it works. And once she's done with the rookie deal, she will absolutely get paid more. How do I feel about Celeste Taylor? I think I touched on that a minute ago. Amber says I had to unfollow so many people that went 80% into clickbait territory. Yeah, it's troubling. I don't like it either. As I see more people have subscribed to my newsletter, make sure you do that at fieldhousefiles.com. Oh, Doug says it was Caitlin. Okay, I missed that on the graphic, apparently. The thing I did notice was they left Caitlin out of the playoff graphic. Maybe that was for engagement, if anything, because more people saw that. Millions saw it because they didn't include Caitlin when it mentioned the fever. Scott, I'm having a terrible day, so I apologize. I do know Steph might get it right, but I just hope they have a coach that helps the fever reach the potential. Candy, that's exactly right. That's what you got to want as a fan, is you want to get the right human to be the coach. Male, female does not matter. White, black does not matter. You want the best coach for this team and for this franchise moving forward, and that's the job that Kelly Krauskopf is tasked with. Awful coaching gig. Hold on. Yes, awful coaching going on in the NBA right now. Who are you referring to there? Let me know. Is Neko Ogwumike a free agent? Any news on her? I'll have to check on that. I'm not positive in what she's doing. I think she's doing more TV. We're seeing a lot of TV, I believe, from her. The whole Wumike family is on TV, it seems like, right? She's also, if I remember right, the head of the Players Association. So she's also working on the new collective bargaining agreement moving forward. I believe it's NECA, the one doing that. I need to double check that one. All right. Why did Reese already get her shoe? She has not already gotten a shoe that I've seen. With Reebok, I think they just announced that she is going to get a signature shoe, but we don't know when that one is coming. Jerry said Nike dropped the ball. I agree with that. Do I feel like Christine Brennan was wrong to ask Carrington about the eye poke? I do not. I would have phrased it differently. I was right there next to her. We talked about it before and after. I thought it was a question to ask. Absolutely. I would have just kept it a little bit more generic. Hey, what happened on that play where your finger, almost poked Caitlin in the eye or got her below the eye? What happened on that play? I think that's what it should have been. But there's no easy, simple way to ask it. But I like to not ask a leading question, but more so just ask a question to get an answer to and give her the opportunity to answer that. That's my general philosophy and all that. Oh my goodness, guys, I can't keep up with all this, and I wish YouTube's scroll was a lot easier to manage here. I keep scrolling right to the bottom and having it skip some. So I apologize if I skipped your question. Go ahead and re-ask it below. They showed Reese's shoe. Does that mean they manufactured it though? The other thing is you really want to get it right. You really want to design it from the bottom up. And so there's a lot that goes into it. Maybe they did fast track Angel Reese's shoe. And that's something Nike should have done with Caitlin, in my opinion. Caitlin can fill Lucas Oil. Caitlin even joked a couple times. She'd love to play over at Lucas Oil. Maybe that's something they'll have to look into. Have you ever heard of the new Caitlin Clark song? No, I have not. Nike did a great job with in college, but they dropped the ball. Yeah, I would agree with that, VMS. Don't know why, but my guess here is they really want to go in with Asia Wilson, who has a signature shoe dropping sooner. That makes the most logical sense, even though I disagree with that. I think whoever is hot, you go all in with that and let it ride, because a player could get injured. A player could not live up to expectation, all that. You just don't know. But what I will say is I think Caitlin exceeded all expectations. Nobody expected her to be top 5 in MVP voting. That's incredible. Rookie of the year, absolutely. But to do what she did, given the way she had to come off a college season, not really have a full training camp, go right into playing 11 games in 20 days. That's crazy. Oh my goodness, all these comments. I need a better way to manage all of this. It is coming out into, I agree with the eye question. I swear the eye gouge was on purpose. It's hard to say. I hate judging people's intent. That's the challenge. The only thing I said with all that is you would normally, I think, hit with the palm or whatever. You wouldn't go down to contest. That was my only thought. But again, she's playing professional basketball. I have not. I'll take her at her word. I didn't like her answer, I will say, that she said, I didn't even know that. I didn't know what happened. Well, we all saw Caitlin on the ground. So I didn't like the answer there. You can slow down the chat. It's in the options. Can I really? Let's see. Moderation, reactions, pop out. I don't know. Either way, it seems to skip to the bottom when I do this. I'm on YouTube. For those listening on the podcast, for those that have missed a lot of it, you can listen back onto the podcast or restart this once I am completion. And I'm going to wrap this up soon. I keep saying that. I'm almost gone 90 minutes here on this Sunday. There's an option so people can only comment once every 5 minutes. Is that right? I thought you could comment as much as you wanted without like spamming, obviously. They got that LeBron shoe fast. They did. And that's why you want to market and get to it right away. They also knew they were going to do that for a while. I got to believe Nike knew that they were going to do it for Caitlin for a while as well, right? They had a deal with Caitlin when she was in college, an NIL deal. So that's a little bit frustrating to me as well. All right. What else do we have here? Ask Fever HQ to put a Lynn Dunn wig in the Fever store. Would you buy that? Do the Fever work with European recruiters? Again, I think I answered this earlier. I'm not sure if the Fever have a European scout. What I do know is I'm certain Kelly and the new general manager, Amber Cox, if there's a player overseas, they're absolutely watching film and they would go there in person if need be. All right. Awful coaching, just flip-flops. Play at Lucas Oil for All-Star Weekend. I mentioned that. That would be a lot of fun. I'd love to see that as well. The hotel sold out right around Gamebridge. They absolutely would, for sure. Does CC have veto power of the next head coach? No, I wouldn't expect that. What I would expect is for management to consult with her, just like you should if you have a face of a franchise like you do. I would expect them to go to Aaliyah and maybe get her opinion on a coach. Same might be true with Kelsey as well. When you are leading a franchise, I think it's wrong if you don't involve them in some capacity, keep them abreast of the situation, let them know maybe who you're talking to. You're making the decision. It is management's decisions. It will come down to who Kelly Krauskopf wants as head coach, but she should absolutely, in my opinion, consult with Caitlin, bring it up with your foundational pieces. And Kelly says she has 3, and Caitlin, Aaliyah, and with Kelsey. I heard 2026 for Reese's shoe. I'm just passing that along. I have not seen that, but it wouldn't surprise me. Ordinarily, it takes about 2.5 years for a signature shoe. Do you think CC is watching this live stream? No, she has way better things to do. Caitlin's not watching this live stream. She's probably in Iowa with her teammates having fun like a 22-year-old should. If they talk about nails, I don't know. I don't. That person in the stands was clearly wrong. I will say that. I don't know what else you want me to talk about in terms of that. Awful Coaching is a channel on YouTube. Oh, okay. I'm not familiar with that one. My apologies. Yes to a weekly show. Okay, Maria. I think I've heard enough here that a lot of you would like something with more regularity. And I think because of the turnout and the number of you that have shown out for this live stream, I got to do more. We've had basically almost 600 people concurrently for almost an hour and a half now. Love you guys. Are you the dude that sits next to Caitlin's at Pressures? Alan, no. That is Ryan Stevens. He's the director of public relations for the Fever. Caitlin sits over there. I sit in the opposite corner. I'm filming caddy corner so you can see the reaction and see everybody on stage. I take I do that for every single interview. Please tell us that Clark is not going to play an Unrivaled. I do not expect for her to. I wouldn't say it's 100% set, but I'd be surprised if she did. There's no reason for her to do that. Scott, will the W lock out in 2026? Very well may. The W players are hard set on what they want, that they want more income and all that. The challenge here is that right now the WNBA is not profitable. That's the challenge. everybody would agree players should deserve more of the pie. Everyone in the league wants more of the pie. The challenge is if the owners aren't making money, it's hard to trickle that money down, right? And so the new TV deal certainly helps. And there will be more TV deals to come. Right now, it just is piggybacking the NBA deals with NBC, with Amazon, with Disney networks. I think they'll renew a partnership with Ion. That brings in, another 60 to 100 million. And that's something the league will benefit from. But there's going to be a negotiation. I think it'll be a hard negotiation. The players want more, but the owners will have to stand pat about what they want as well. And what is possible for the financial stability of the league. You cannot compare the NBA and WNBA. NBA has been going almost 80 years. WNBA is still, 28, 29 years right now. So we'll have one more season followed by a new bargaining agreement with the players and the owners. What that looks like, we'll see. Add the stream to X and it will double. I guess I'll have to. I'll look into that, Doug. I appreciate it. I'm just curious how that would impact comments because this I send directly from YouTube, but maybe I can also get it on Twitter as well. Please work to protect Caitlin from the reporters trying to trap her. Not my job, exactly. I am not the one asking those questions, certainly. But yeah, I understand you're trying to protect her a little bit. Not my role, though. Hi, Scott. Why aren't they selling the Clark action figures they have in the promos? Good question. I don't know. Maybe they should. Maybe it comes down to a license thing as well. That was a really good job by the Fever and Pacers design team, though. All right, truly a couple more here, and then I got to get going. I'll post this on fieldhousefiles.com. You can rewatch it on YouTube and on the podcast. Only reason I know what Ion is because of Caitlin Rainbow. Yeah, I get it. Scott, how much is a threat is unrivaled to the W considering the lockout? I don't think it's a threat. I wish it well. It's 3-on-3 though, right? So it's very different. It's also during the winter. But it does provide more money right now to the league. But it's just getting started and it's so hard to start anything. I know I've started a business. This is my business. I know what it takes to start something from the scratch. And so there will be growing pains. It's huge that they got a network like TNT to buy in early, but it cost them some equity for it. Now they need for it to thrive. I'm very curious to see how it does during the winter months against the NBA as well. What's the relationship like between the Fever and the W like? Very good. Ask that more specifically, Jenny. But in terms of the Fever and like WNBA as a whole, yeah, absolutely. Very good. In my book, WNBA is 1 year old. Come on now. I went to games in the Fever's inaugural year all the way back in 2000. It was Ann Donovan as head coach because Nell Fortner was the Olympic head coach. I remember all that. She's so good at not getting trapped by reporters. She is. She's a true pro. So self-aware, so prepared. Again, very much reminds me off the court like Peyton Manning. Wasn't Connor a point guard? He's a guard, more of a forward. I think 6'5" forward. Played 5 years at Iowa. Christie Sides getting fired on was on Canadian national news. Canada is stoked for the new WNBA team. That's awesome. That it was talked about because you're right. Toronto's getting a team here in a couple of years. Next year, it's Golden State entering the league. You'll have Portland after that. What I don't like is you're having multiple years of expansion draft. I'm curious how that impacts the league. It'd kind of be nice if you got it all together in one here, and then they're obviously going to add another team after that. We'll give them 16 teams, and that's the magical number for the league. And hopefully the talent level makes that sustainable. Have you gotten to know Connor at all? I have, and I will have a story coming up on him as well. I went over to Butler, talked with him for about 20 minutes about his new role on Thad Matta's coaching staff with Butler men's basketball team after leaving the Pacers after about 1 year. Scott, Fever fans are protective of Caitlin. I get that. I totally get that. I think a lot of fans are of their players, whomever that is, right? And they defend them. They support them. Absolutely. I respect that. That's why you're a fan. You're fanatic. I totally get that. Julie believes White is not the coach for Indiana. Send her to Chicago. Please expand on that, Julie. I would totally disagree. I think Stephanie is exactly what the Fever need and want, and she would be fantastic here. Remember the last time the Fever were relevant, she was the head coach. Tamika was her star player in her final couple of years there before Catch retired in 2016. Steph took them to the finals in 2015. Guess what? I know because I was there. I covered that finals right there. So that was a lot of fun. Why did Connor led the nation in assists to turnover? Is that right? I didn't realize that. If so, Scott, is the WNBA considering the Fever play in Europe for popularity and grow the game? Not that I know of, but what I do know is that Kathy Engelbert does want to consider options overseas. They realize how much the NBA is a global game, how much basketball is a global game. I don't think they're ready for it just yet. They need to focus on the U.S. more so, but I think their goals and focus down the road would maybe have a couple showcase games overseas. The Pacers, for example, will be going overseas in January to play the Spurs as they highlight Victor Wembanyama in mid-January for a pair of games. They should pay Caitlin more. She is the need. I think I already read that. Or did you just repost that? Fever can't pay Caitlin more. It's strict by the collective bargaining agreement. So it's not on the Fever. It's not on the WNBA. That's all they are legal or allowed to pay her based on the rules of the WNBA. Otherwise, it would be circumventing the WNBA collective bargaining agreement. Sone, I apologize if I butchered their name, but yeah, appreciate you. Thanks for jumping on here as well. Scott at 1 a.m. All right, a few more questions. No kidding, Chris. I'm going to wrap it up here, though. We've gone an hour and a half, over 500 people concurrently. You guys are incredible. Hey, caught up to the questions. Yes, I did. I appreciate it. Just don't think Steph will be a good fit, just a feeling. But more importantly, I think the commissioner needs to go. Wow. You're not a big fan of a lot of these people. I would disagree. I have firsthand experience with Steph. I saw her as a player. I saw her as an assistant. I saw her as a head coach, and I covered her here this year as the Connecticut coach. You can go back to Fieldhouse Files last year in the Fever opening night. They played the Connecticut Sun. I wrote about Stephanie White. So I tried to talk a lot about her and on her staff that year. Breon January joining the fold as well, former Fever player. And I think those two would be great here if the Fever could get her. We'll see. I don't know. Max, let's do it again soon. I agree. We will have to do that. Great podcast. Keep it up. Scott, don't have to read all these comments. Some questions are not worth it. I appreciate that. I just like to engage with all of you. So I appreciate all of that. I am going to wrap it up here, though. I don't think we need to go on much more here. But what I will say is this is an exciting time for the Fever, an exciting time for basketball fans. I do know that. Fever only stopped playing a month ago, and look at this fan interest right now. This is remarkable. A year ago, there wouldn't have been 100 people on this chat. And so I appreciate you. I appreciate it that you're on here. And so we'll see. Maybe we will have news tomorrow. Maybe we'll have news in a couple days or later this week. When we do, when we have a serious update, I'll come back here on YouTube and provide that for you and write about it on fieldhousefiles.com. So make sure you are subscribed to my channel. Make sure you're subscribed to the podcast and my channel here on YouTube. But again, can't say enough. I appreciate everybody jumping on here and joining me here on this Sunday night as we wrap this one up for good, Chris. It's not 1 a.m. We are wrapping this one up here this evening. Thanks again for joining me on this Fieldhouse Files live podcast. Everybody have a great week. All right. Good night.